Saahil Mehta, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to see you.
It's such a pleasure to reconnect, Govind.
Yeah, it's been a while. We were riding horses out in the wild, wild west last time we saw each other. So this is a little bit different, a little more civilized, I think, a little more terrestrial.
Yeah, I remember that. In the one state that most Americans haven't been to, in Idaho.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, amazing experience. Red Horse Mountain Ranch. For anyone thinking about it and looking it up, it is a dude ranch extraordinaire. They do retreats right there, and it unforgettable experience. So it was nice to see you there, and it's nice to see you again. And it remarkable that it's been so many years in between those two times. Um, but you shared an incredible paper napkin with me that you did not write. You had someone write for you. You did admit that right away. But I was going to give you credit for it because if you're just listening to the podcast, you'll have to go check it out. It's one of the very rare that is actually written in cursive as opposed to in block letters. Um, so it is written in code for anybody under the age of 20. I think you can't read it, but I'll read it for you. Take the path that will lead you to zero regret. Why did you share that with me, Sahil?
For me, I've been dwelling on success for a long time. And what I found is I was not just myself, but myself and the many people that I work with when I'm coaching them. Many people are going after this definition of success that is given by their parents, by society, by social media. Basically, it's external. It's not necessarily something where they sat down and said, let me define for myself what success means to me. Because what I'm seeing is I see the world advancing at such a fast pace, but at the same time, the mental challenges that we're encountering are just unprecedented. I mean, the rates are alarming at which they're increasing. So I said to myself, how does this make any sense? On one side, we see more and more millionaires and billionaires. We see better medication and all of that, but we see mental well-being and mental health declining. And so I asked myself, I said, well, let's look within. Let's not point outwards. Let's look within. And I realized that I had pretty much checked all the boxes for what I thought was a successful life. I was told, you have good health, you're married, you've got kids, you have enough money where you're not in debt, you're able to travel around the world. I was driving a Porsche, living in a six-bedroom villa. And I'm like, I was checking all the boxes, but I still didn't feel fulfilled. And I was facing some challenges where there was a lot of inflammation in the body as well. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what's going on? You're better off than so many people in the world. You're not suffering from an illness. You're not in a war-torn country. You're not having relationship issues. So why are you not feeling fulfilled? You should be jumping up and down with joy. But the reality, Govind, was I had a lot of regret because I was living someone else's definition of success, not my own.
That's amazing. I want to go back to something you started with, and it was this idea that you were dwelling on the idea of success, right? And I think that's not an uncommon thing. I mean, the way you said it was uncommon, but I don't think it's an uncommon thing that many of us, when we reach a goal, a destination, a place that we're supposed to be, we get there and it's like, huh? This doesn't feel right. And and you use that moment, that contemplative moment, to dwell on what it meant to be successful. So you talked about where where your definitions of success may have come from parents, society, or handed down to you in some other way. Is that where you made that revelation that you had not really contemplated what it meant to be successful to you, that you were just adopting somebody else's template?
That's certainly how it felt. And that coupled with me having a people pleasing attribute that didn't make life easier. Because
Mm.
when someone said you should do this because it's better for you, and it was someone that was perhaps a family member or someone who's near and dear, I probably would go by their suggestion, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, their doctrine. It's not a suggestion. It's like this is the way to be successful. This is what you need to do. Go do it. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll go do that. So let me ask you, um, when you made that revelation, when that became obvious to you, and I think it's hard for people who don't achieve goals or haven't yet achieved their goals to understand this. When you do this, it's kind of hollow, right? It you get to where you think you're going to have what you think you wanted, and then you're there and it's empty, and it's a crisis of meaning. So what did you do? Did you lose momentum in that moment? What happened? Let's talk about that moment.
Yeah, so look, I do want to say one thing before I answer your question, is at the same time, people said, around me would say, you have to have gratitude. You're not grateful enough for the life that you have. You- Um, you're privileged, you're lucky. I mean, you should be celebrating that. And again, I could hear them and I'm thinking to myself, why am I not feeling grateful? And again, it's because I was feeling somewhat hollow, somewhat empty, somewhat unfulfilled. So what happened in my case was, and I love sharing this story because a lot of people say something negative has to happen in your life to kind of have an awakening. In my case, it was the opposite. I tasted how beautiful life could be. And the best way to describe this is a story from my teenage years. I grew up in Belgium in a town called Antwerp. It's the second largest city in the country, less than 1 million people. And I was used to having supermarket ice cream. You get chocolate, you get vanilla, strawberry, and if you're lucky, you got one of those chocolate vanilla combo sandwiches. You remember those ice cream sandwiches? I think they still exist nowadays. And then one day, everyone's talking about this new ice cream store that's opened in town, Haagen-Dazs. And I'm just very curious. So I go into town, I walk in, and there's this beautiful aroma and all these different aromas just flowing through my nostrils. And then I walk closer to the counter and I see something like 15 different flavors.
Mm.
And then to my surprise, the lady behind the counter says, "Would you like to try?" I'm going, "Are you serious? I can try these flavors?" Amazing. But once I had them and I tasted how beautiful and rich an ice cream could be, I couldn't go back to the supermarket ice cream. And so that's what happened. I was on a retreat with some fellow entrepreneurs where we all agreed to no judgment. And during that time, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to pretend to be someone that I'm not. I could just be me.
Mm.
And so the only way I can describe the next few days was liberating. And as I'm coming back home, I wanted to share all this with my wife. So I asked the air hostess, I said, "Can you please give me a pen and a pad of paper?" And as I started to write, tears just started trickling down my face. And now I'm going, what's going on? Like, it's not like you to cry. But I didn't want to block anything. I didn't want to, I felt like I've spent too many years blocking emotions. I said, I just want to let this flow. I want this to be process. And as I was reflecting and thinking, I said, if this is the man who I am, who has no fear of judgment, who felt so liberated for the last 4 days, if that's me, then who the hell am I going back to? I don't recognize that guy. That's not me.
Mhm.
That's not who I am. That's someone behind a mask. And so the best way to describe it, and I love climbing mountains. I've climbed some of the world's tallest mountains. I always say I was carrying a lot of weight that just served no functional purpose in my life, whether it was emotional, mental, physical, whatever it was. And I realized that I was just dragging this around with me everywhere I went. And Govind, can you imagine carrying a 10 kilo backpack everywhere you go?
Mm.
It's draining.
Yeah.
It takes up so much energy and it slows me down. It might not even allow me to get to where I need to get to. And so I started to identify all this heavy weight that I was carrying in my backpack. And through trial and error, learning from some of the best coaches, mentors, online courses, I mean, you name it, I tried so many different modalities. I started to identify and eliminate them from my life. And as I did that, I became lighter, more nimble, and I just started progressing at a much faster pace. And that's when I started asking myself, okay, when I'm moving faster, I want to make sure I'm going in a direction which I define as success rather than what I've been told is successful. And so that's when I started to think, okay, well, what does success mean to me? And kind of coming back to the mountain analogy, in the world, we have this thing called, in the mountaineering world, the seven summits. It's the tallest mountain on each continent. So I said, Sahil, what are your seven summits? Because Govind, success is never one thing. A lot of people think about success, and usually money is a big component of that. But imagine if you're the richest person in the world and you have no health, no relationships, no personal growth, no spirituality. I mean, whatever the things that are important in your life, that's not success. That's just a very unfulfilled, rich individual. So I said, okay, well, let me see what are the areas of life, seven areas of life that are important for me. And the beautiful thing about this is, Govind, once that was clear, decision making became a lot easier because every time I had to make a decision, I would ask myself, what is the net effect on the seven summits? Is it a net positive, in which case I would consider moving in that direction, versus a net negative, where I go, whoa, whoa, maybe it improves one or two areas of my life, but the net result is overall negative. It's not a decision I should be taking. Because again, that's my definition of success.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot there, and I don't want to. I'm only cheekily saying this. There's a lot there to unpack from that backpack that you were talking about, right? The 10-kilo backpack, 25-pound backpack that some people are carrying around. That's really going back to where your definition, your original definition of success that may have been adopted, that's maybe the weight of somebody else's expectations or what you think will please other people. And this other thing where you said you should be feeling gratitude, you should feeling happy, you should be feeling all these things, and when you let go of those things, you let go of the backpack to some degree and got to decide what was important to you, and you used something that you love, mountaineering, to help define what those filters were for you. Now, your napkin talks about zero regret. How does this relate to zero regret? How do the summits relate to zero regret?
Great question, Govind. My belief system is when you are successful by your definition, you are more fulfilled in life.
Mm.
And for me, fulfillment is the opposite end of the spectrum from regret. And hence, as you move towards a more fulfilling life, you're moving further and further away from regret.
And so fulfillment to you is measured by being net positive in those seven summits, those seven important areas of your life. And you use that as a filter for decision making. Is that right?
Correct. And as I get higher and higher up those seven mountains, life becomes more and more fulfilling. Now, I do want to say one thing. It's very possible that there are some changes that occur in your lifetime. When shifts happen, your perspective in life changes.
Hmm.
Perhaps you get married or divorced, or you have children, children go to university, you move to a different country, you change jobs, you sell a company, start a new, a startup, whatever it is. The point is that is a major shift in your life. And once you have a shift, you may see the world slightly differently. So I always tell people that I'm working with that, listen, give yourself permission to adapt along the way because you're basing your seven summits on the knowledge that you have. And as your knowledge or perspective shifts or increases or changes, it's okay that if some of these summits are evolving along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's really also embedded in your paper napkin, right? You say take the path that will lead you. So the path To my mind, when I think about path, I don't think about a superhighway. I'm not thinking about an autobahn that, that's stretched out and straight and you can travel at ridiculous speed. It's a path. It might meander. It might, while you might have a destination or the azimuth in mind, you may have to twist and turn your way up the side of that hill to get to the summit, right? So that there is going to be an agility exercise to it. There may be adjustment along the way, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also that it will lead you to zero regret. It's not like you're snapping someone's fingers at the moment. Oh, I realize that these are my seven summits, so I have no regret. That's not how it works either, right?
Not at all. And it's a journey, as you mentioned.
Right.
You deal with the regrets that are perhaps the low-hanging fruits or perhaps the larger ones initially. And as you progress, new things come along. It's the best way to describe it is challenges will always come in your life, Govind. We know that. It's always a roller coaster ride. But
Hmm.
how you address things once you have a greater level of awareness changes.
Right.
And I'll share a funny story. My wife and I were on our way to give a talk on conscious communication for couples. And on the way to the talk, we got into an argument in the car. And then at one point I just said, pause, pause. I just feel so inauthentic right now. There's no way I can give this talk because we're having this argument. But let's use the framework we've both co-created to resolve this so-called conflict. And as we went through it, we quickly realized that it was a misunderstanding which was based on some assumptions. Now, we got back to a good place. We were able to give the talk. And at the talk, I actually shared that example. And I said, it doesn't mean that challenges won't occur. It just means how you process them. You bounce back a lot faster.
Hmm.
Versus previously, we might not have spoken for the next 2 or 3 days.
Right. Right. Um, One of the things I want to also go back to is you talked about your wife and you talked about her now and you talked about her earlier on your flight back from that retreat when you had decided to open up, had decided to sort of live in this judgment-free environment and document some of those thoughts, those feelings, those observations, and again, put them on the path. Put yourself on the path of what that might be. Was any part of you unsure about sharing this with your wife, sharing this revelation about your definition of success and how it might be changing? Did that occur to you when you were coming back?
I actually feel I had the opposite problem. I felt I shared too much because I was so excited. In fact, I was so excited when I started to learn and evolve and see the benefits that I was starting to tell her what to do. But it was
Mm.
coming from a place of love, and it was coming from a place of, okay, I've just discovered this. You must go through it as well because you're going to feel the same way I feel. And that's when the hand came out
How'd
and
that
said,
go over?
the hand came out and she said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold your horses. That's your journey. Don't be pushing that on me."
Well, that was a very sophisticated response on her part.
Well, I'm
Um,
buttering it up a little bit, but
I
but my
remember when I learned
realization
about.
and my lesson in that was share. Don't tell someone what to do. Share your experience and the benefit it gave you, and let them make the decision for themselves they wish to pursue whether they wish to pursue going down that path or not.
And I think this is so sharing is so important. Sharing that experience is so important. I think it's so we forget it, right? We to our loved ones especially, it goes back to this definition of success. We say this worked for me, and this is where you got your version of success, definition of success. This worked for me, so go do this, and you will be happy. Go do this, and you will be successful. Go do this, and I don't have to worry about you. That's the code, really, right? And we have to be careful about not imposing that thing that worked for us on someone else. And this is, I think, really wise that's included in your napkin. It's taking the path. It's a personal action. It's not giving the path. It's not giving a map. It's not anything like that. It's encourage others to take their own path that leads to zero regret, but understanding what that is, right?
Absolutely. Otherwise, I would be doing the same thing that others did to me, which caused the conflict in me in the first place.
Right, right. I remember when I learned about DISC, the character assessment tool. I came home and I told my wife about it, and I told her what her DISC was. That didn't go over very well either. So the and then ironically, she took it with her forum, her spousal forum, a very short period of time later, and she came by and told me about all the things about it, and I was thrilled that she'd experienced it. The but the bottom line is how do we censor how do we make sure, especially for the people we love, the people we care most about, because we tend to want to fix things for them, right? How do we make sure that we stay in the zone of supporting them on their path versus being directive to our path?
One of the realizations that I had along the way, and it was a very tough one because I felt torn, and that's I'm responsible for me.
Mm,
Everyone who's an adult, they're responsible for their own life, for the actions that they take. I'm not responsible. So even though for example, I would see something that I've changed lifestyle, and I'm like, okay, I don't do something anymore because that was taking me closer to an earlier grave, but I see a family member doing it. I can't change them. I mean, what's the success rate of changing someone who doesn't wish to be changed?
zero.
Exactly. And so it just causes distance. And I realized that it caused more conflict than good. So now all I can do is just keep reminding them that I'm there, showering them with love, sharing my perspective, how I feel, share the things that are benefiting me, but not telling them what to do. And just tell them that, look, I'm here for you. Just keep reminding them that I'm here for you because I care
Mm,
and I love you. And there's no harm in sharing your perspective because I grew because I entered the zone of discomfort. So someone else also needs to hear certain things. But there's many ways you can tell them.
mm,
I can tell you, hey, you need to do this versus, I went through this myself a couple of years ago. This is the impact it had on my life. I made these changes, and this is what it means now. If there's anything at all that I can do to support you on your journey, please do let me know. I'm just giving you a very brief example there, but just how you position yourself can change how the other person receives it.
yeah, and I think that's another part of just being responsible for yourself. What changed for you when you let go of the backpack, when you unburdened yourself of the expectations? You talked about, maybe your mental health wasn't the best, that you had inflammation in the body, that, and you talked about feeling lighter. What did that really mean? Like, give me an example of what changed
Sure.
for you.
When I started taking care of what I was consuming in terms of food and beverages and started to eliminate things that were harming my body and having things that were essential vitamins and minerals that were low, physically, I lost 10% of my body weight, which was all fat. Because
Mm,
when my body was not bloated because it was, because of constant inflammation, it just started to work a lot better. My sleep drastically improved. I wasn't waking up with a clogged nose and a heavy head.
mhm,
I used to have these energy dips during the day, and sometimes they were so bad I used to fall asleep. I could fall asleep on my desk, on the phone, having a conversation with someone. I've fallen asleep in a restaurant, in a nightclub. I mean, you name it. So that's what I mean by energy dips. It wasn't just a small dip, it was a huge one. All that disappeared. So
mm,
physically, I just felt a lot more energetic. And as I felt more energetic, I was getting more stuff done in the same amount, in less amount of time. And so one of the things that as a business owner that I always look for, and for me, I look at it as a luxury, One of them is time. And once I had more time, I could spend that on personal development, more with family, my hobbies, etc. But that's how I felt physically. Mentally, I just had a lot more clarity because I used to get stuck between, oh, if I do this, what will they think? I don't want to upset them, the people pleasing traits that I had. In addition to, should I make this decision or that decision? And I kind of be just stuck and not make any decision and just stay somewhat paralyzed. And so I was able to make decisions a lot better because I knew what the impact of those decisions were. I'm not going to say I had a 100% success rate, but a lot better than before.
Mhm.
So a lot more clarity, much better physically. And emotionally, I was starting to have those difficult conversations that I kept pushing away with the people that mattered in my life, whether it was the missus, whether it was my father, because there were moments where we just started to distance. And I kept thinking, oh, it'll get better, or just let's slip it under the carpet. Time will heal. But all those statements are just procrastination.
Yeah.
At one point, you have to have that important conversation that you've been putting off. And so, whether it was emotionally, whether it was mentally, whether it was physically, I just started to feel so much more alive. I was just a happier individual. I was waking up fresh. And as all these heavy weights started to remove in my life, I mean, you can only imagine how much faster I'm now going up those mountains.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about is you've said that you're a people pleaser a number of times in this conversation. And I think that when people who are people pleasers have to face difficult or uncomfortable conversations, the answer is procrastination. It's I'll put it off, but that's just burdening more and more. What's interesting to me is that as you energy restored, as you had become more comfortable with unburdening yourself of things, you had the energy to have the uncomfortable conversations with the people that you care about to address things more compassionately and less reactively, I'm sure. So can we talk about your seven summits? What are your seven summits? What are your seven things?
So in my case, it's health, relationships, wealth. Wealth is also important. You need money to live.
Mhm.
Um, Spirituality, personal growth, spouse. And I kept spouse as separate because there's relationships and then there's spousal relationship, which I keep different. And the final was community.
I, I love that you made that distinction between relationships and spouse. Um, I'm sure she was happy to hear that too. The question that I have is you said earlier on that once you were clear on the seven things that were most important to you and you were assessing things as a net positive to those seven things, then it was an easy decision to make. So, can you run me through what that would look like? Because I think somebody listening right now is saying, okay, well, this is all great. Sahil had his villa with the six bedrooms and his Porsche, and he was driving around in his Porsche. He's thinking about, oh, you know what I can do now? I'm going to go climb these seven summits and I'm going to say no to everything. And somebody out there is running their business. It's 11 o'clock at night and they're feeling stressed out and under pressure and under the burden of all of these things. And they're going like, I can't use these seven summits. This doesn't make sense for me. And I think you're saying, no, 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 that's exactly the time to start using them. How would you use them? Let's pick up the tool and use it.
Absolutely. So let's look at a business opportunity. As an entrepreneur, I run a couple of businesses, and I also invest in the public markets and private equity. And every now and again, these opportunities come up. I also invest in real estate. So when these opportunities come up, before all I would look at is, okay, if I take this on, it's taking up some of my time, but the upside is I can make this much money,
Hmm.
right? And so I would say yes, because, or at least I would say yes to assessing it and then eventually make a decision whether it was right for me or not.
Because what you were doing then, past tense, is assessing investment, dollars in, time in, dollars out. Those are your variables, and that's the equation, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I said to myself, okay, well, because many times when I used to say yes, I didn't realize what I would be or what I needed to give up temporarily or for a long period of time. So if there was a business opportunity which is not an investment, let's say it's a growth opportunity in the company, but it would mean that I would have to allocate, you know, an hour of my time extra every day for the next 10 years. Well, not even 10 years, let's say 5 years. Now, previously, I just would have said yes because I wouldn't have thought about when I said yes to this, what am I saying no to? But that extra hour means I'm going to have to sacrifice something because there's only 24 hours in the day. So if I sacrifice sleep, that's affecting my health. So the health mountain gets affected. If I take it away from family, my kids are going to be, the first one enters university in 5 years. I'm going to miss out on very important years. And I do not want to have that regret. I should have spent more time with them when they go off to university. So it would affect relationships. If I took it away from my time with my wife, it would affect my relationship with her. If I took it away from working out or doing yoga or something, it will again take away from my on the health side. So then I would basically look at when I say yes to this, what is the net effect? What am I going to have to give up? And which other mountains are going to have to take a pause or even go backwards? Where I'm going to have to go down the mountain instead of going up. And am I okay with that? Now, if it was 1 hour a day extra only for 6 months, I would maybe say, yes, look, it's only 6 months. It's not for 5 years.
Hmm.
That's doable, perhaps. But if it's for 5 years, in my mind, I'm just going, no, I'm not willing that extra money is not going to have a huge shift in my life in terms of lifestyle, but it will certainly have a negative impact on health, relationships, or something else that I really care about.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. And I think what people need to understand is something you said very quickly. Like you said, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And if you're saying no to something that you've identified as being your seven priorities, one of your seven priorities, then you're moving into that regret area. You'll regret losing time with your family. You'll regret losing relationships. You'll regret um, anything that impacts negatively your personal growth or spirituality, your your spouse, your community, your impact in the community, but also your ability to interact with your community. Just be present in the community is important, and then finally your health. So these things, uh, I think, for a lot of people who are surviving and not yet understanding this formula, they're always thinking that you can compromise. Oh no, I can go down one of these things for a little while. I'll make it up on the other side. I think what you're saying is life gets easier when you realize that there are options that you have to just change the way you're doing something and be mindful of all the things you're saying yes to first. Your first yeses, right?
Absolutely. With clarity, I've said no to a lot of things that actually they don't shift the needle that much at all. And by saying yes to the things that matter most, I have more energetic, I'm spending less time, but being more effective. And so I've actually saved myself time. And I do want to share one more thing, Govin. My perspective also changed in life, right? In the sense that I thought I was not wealthy enough. I always wanted more,
Mhm.
more, more, more. I fell into that trap of when I get this, I will be happy. And then when I shifted my lens to say, actually, I have everything I need, everything I want are just desires,
Right.
suddenly I became extremely rich.
Right. It's what we talked about Red Horse Mountain Ranch off the top, and Warren Rustand facilitated that gathering, and he likes to say, when you change the way you look at the world you look at changes. And I think you're really sharing a personal story of how you change the way you look at the world, and your world changes. Another final thought, and I want to ask you what you think about this, is that when you realize there are things that you are choosing that don't move you on a net positive on those seven things, if you hold your space and hold time for the things that do move you up that those mountains, your capacity increases as well. Your ability increases. You become lighter. But by saying no and compromising, you're you're booking time, you're booking energy away from the things that are really going to move you forward. So it's people can get caught in a paradox, right? Where they're, oh, I'll just do this for a little while, but that little while becomes a treadmill that they can never get off of. You just have to make the choice, don't you?
Absolutely. And that's what I love. I love how you elaborated and kind of unfolded and unpackaged it, because when you think it through versus just, it's like a conversation. If you're reactive rather than responding, you may say something you will regret. And it's the same in decision making. If it's just going to be a reaction, you
Hmm.
might make a decision that you regret because you didn't really think it through, that what is the long-term effect of this decision.
Right, right. No, I love this, Sahil, and it's wonderful that you shared it with me.
In
Um,
fact, I would just say one more thing on
Please.
that point is, there's so many times where I realized, and I discovered this on a silence retreat, that I was making decisions too quickly. You know, the big decisions that we make in our lives. And so now every time I have to make a bigger decision, I say, you know what? I'm just going to disconnect. If the weather's nice, I'll go to the local park, just walk around and just be with my, leave the phone behind, walk around for 2, 3 hours, just let it process in my mind, kind of think it through. Okay, if I say yes to this or no to this is what happens. This is where it gets impacted. Am I okay with that? Okay, next layer, and keep peeling it down and just make sure that it's something that is meaningful. And if not, then I go back and say, hey, this is not for me.
Yeah, and you can do that kindly and compassionately, especially when you've taken that pause. And you talked about the pause in a contentious conversation with your wife, but it's also before any decision gets made. And I think that's a very valuable thing. And I think it goes back to your napkin. Again, take the path. It's a choice. Choose the path that will lead you to zero regret, and then start taking that path. And have the courage to do that. Um, really grateful that you shared this with me. It's really wonderful to see you again, Sahil. Uh, this is a time in the conversation where I always ask our guests, as a shout out to John Rulin, who was a great friend of the show back when we started. He gave us a great napkin, which was what you appreciate appreciates. And his vision was that when you give appreciation to people around you, they appreciate and value not only to yourself, but to the community because you lift them up. And you've certainly done that for us today. But I would ask you, is there someone that you appreciate or you would like to share some gratitude with to close out our time together?
Just based on the conversation we've had, it's someone that we both know very well, a gentleman by the name of Warren Rustand. What a great human being. I've learned some amazing wisdom from him. And since you brought up the topic, the one that resonates with our conversation today is, he told me, he goes, Sile, you have to make sure you know that what priority your spouse is.
Hmm.
And so I thought about it because I kept shifting in my people pleasing. And so I realized that my first priority is me, not from a selfish way, but if I take care of me, I can just be a better version of myself and be a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better boss, a better, etc., all the labels. But my second priority is the spouse. And what he made me realize is if life takes its toll, my parents will pass before me. The children will at some point leave the house, whether they come back to the same city or the house, I don't know. But the one person that remains, hopefully, is the spouse. So let's not wait to focus on that relationship once the kids have left. Let's focus on it right now. And that was a game changer for me. So I'm very grateful for Warren, not just for that piece of wonderful advice, but all the other golden nuggets that he's given over the years.
Yeah, I think if we all sat down, we could fill reams of books with his gifted wisdom. Thank you for sharing that, Sahil. Thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.